Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Fosco. I'm the Senior Product Designer for the release stage, and I'm here with Chris Balane, Senior Product Manager for the release stage as well. Thanks for being here, Chris. So today for our agenda, our first topic is reviewing the updates on the group environments page, issue, and discussion. Chris, maybe make sense for you to share your screen to go over some of the updates there?
Yes. 1 second. Share my screen. Okay, can you see that? All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to highlight this update. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from others, from Kevin, from Victor, Alana, Jackie, Will, and so on. And a lot of the feedback was helpful in sort of framing the issue, framing the problem, and the job to be done that we're trying to achieve here. And from prior contexts that we've known already from validation research and other efforts to make sure that we're building in the right features. And so I wanted to just sort of corral the conversation and make sure that we're number one, making sure we're framing the problem to solve in the right way. So not necessarily using GitLab specific concepts, but rather kind of focusing on the end user and what they're trying to achieve. And so now the updated problem to solve is, as a release manager or a platform engineer, I want to see the status of my multi-project applications production environment and recent changes in one place, so I can easily understand everything that has been deployed to my end users. And so just a few, we've been iterating and making slight tweaks to the problem to solve. And so just wanted to highlight some of the key things that we've changed and that we're thinking about now. The change in persona. So we're adding a platform engineer who is the person responsible for managing that environments and the application platform infrastructure. And they tend to be a little bit more technical. And so we want to also target this page and the information on this page to that persona. And then, as I mentioned, just reframing the problem to not use GitLab concepts. I think we've built a lot already into the platform, but we want to always ensure that we're thinking about the problem in terms of the user, because the user really doesn't, they think of things in terms of their own applications and their environments, not necessarily about GitLab specific groups and other concepts that we might have built as part of our platform. And then the scope, we also wanted to make sure that we specify key things like multi-project application and production, because those are the things we want to focus on for this MVC. And there's definitely more use cases and different types of project configurations, but in the spirit of iteration and scoping down to this MVC, we wanted to point that out explicitly. Anything else to add, Daniel?
No, I think that was a great overview. I refer to this issue as group environments page, but as part of these updates, we also changed the title to dynamically populated organization level environments page, as to also make sure that we're detaching this from GitLab artifacts like project or group or workspace or whatever level it should be. It should be at the level where the user, the release manager or platform engineer wants to visualize their organization, which might not be the whole company, it might be their department or their stage or whatever it is, how they organize, high level enough that they can see everything that they want to see. And this might also mean that this page might be reproduced at different levels of the GitLab hierarchy as well in the future. So you might have this page at the group level, but if it's a subgroup, you might also have this page on the group above it and so on, all the way to the top. That will be after the MVC, of course. The initial implementation still focused on group, but we should frame the problem to be solved and the solution as to allow for this flexibility to grow in the right directions in the future.
Daniel, actually, did you see, I actually did add a little bit more to the description, and I linked it here about sort of like a little bit more justification about the group solution now that we've defined the jobs to be done.
You added in the context?
Yeah,
Oh, I saw the
happy to,
limitations as well, right?
yeah, happy to kind of walk through that too, if that's helpful.
Yeah, yeah, maybe scroll all the way to the top to show that as well.
Yeah, okay,
I think it's
sure.
useful.
Yeah, another thing we added to the description here, kind of starting from the job to be done, we've narrowed that down and refined it. We also added a little bit more explicit kind of points as to why we believe the solution that we do have proposed is the right one. And so looking at this MVC rationale, groups are in practice the closest thing we do have to an organization. And so it does make sense to utilize groups, the group level as the solution for this organizational level kind of environments page. Second point is that we're solving for this pattern where an organization may have an application that has multiple projects, so sort of a simple or a kind of a common microservices application, for example. And so this will meet the need for those folks that want to be able to see environments across the different projects that are really one application. So this solution works for that. And then as Daniel alluded to just now, subgroups potentially are used in similar ways for teams. And so this solution does extend in the future if we decide to iterate and implement for subgroups as well. I've called out known limitations. We do know, and because we're narrowing the scope, there are some limitations to the solution, but want to call those out and make sure that we're aware and people are aware of those and some things that we might try to address in the future. Organizations use subgroups and groups in maybe different ways and that what we're talking about, and that's great and that's okay. But the solution that we're defining right now doesn't might not immediately address their needs. That's something, again, we can do more research on and iterate on in the future. The second one here is that we're talking about, if we go back to the job to be done, about understanding an applications sort of an environment in production. We don't really have kind of a first-class concept of what an application is. We're sort of talking about groups, which are loosely coupled to organizations, and there may be one or more applications. And then we talk about projects also, which may be an application, but you may also have multiple projects that comprise an application. So we don't have anything really in between to define it. And so that's something that we've been thinking about and may explore more in the future and figure out how to incorporate that into our platform. And then kind of the third point was related to what I just said. We have applications that may span multiple projects, but also multiple groups. So this solution doesn't really, doesn't fully solve that. And then, of course, this MVC approach relies on the production tier to be configured. And so, if it's not, this solution doesn't really work as well. So some things that we want to call out and want to think about as we launch this, and then work to make it even better.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chris. I had seen you updated the problem to solve and the context on the top of the issue, but I hadn't seen these additional expositions. So this is really good, and I think it addresses all or most of the points that were raised in the discussion threads, both from the perspective of where we want to go with this and also why we're not there yet, right? What are the limitations? Why are we drawing the line on the MVC where we are drawing? And acknowledging that, yes, we are tying the solution to some artifacts in GitLab because that's how we implement the MVC, but ideally in the future, that will not be the case. I like how you finished mentioning the production tier because it ties to what I wanted to show, which are the latest screens. So I will take over the screen share and share my Figma. So after we had the discussion with that advanced view that was focused on deployments, I tried to cut back a little bit to what the original intent of the issue was and the original views, and try to wrap around that to get the designs done. Uh, so here, I think the first inconsistency here, there is something to ask, is I think this page really should be called just environments, even though it's on the group level. It already points in the right direction that this could be on other places other than the group. The only difference is that we're going to have two pages that are called environments, but they are slightly different, because on the project level, we'll have the current environment page that only lists the environments because they are within a single project, while this page will list multiple projects with their environments inside. But since users will know that they are on the group level of their own company, I think this makes sense and won't introduce any confusion, but we can validate that as well, of course. And then in terms of how this is visualized, there are a few options, right? I'm added here an empty state that says to view all the production environments for the group in this page, add production tier to your environments. So this empty state assumes that you have 0 environments in any projects that have production tier, thus there's nothing to show here. Then once you do have that configured, there's different ways we could show this. A very MVC. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, do you mind if I have a quick comment on the last screen? Is that all right? Or do you want, maybe we want to do that later? Okay. Yeah, I wonder if it maybe a quick, maybe we could even just link to the environments if that's like, maybe like as a little more of a nudge, because yeah, somewhere in that, maybe in that add to the production tier to environments could be like maybe sort of a call to action to linked.
This is a very basic empty state. We can definitely improve it. Add your comment on the doc, on the agenda,
Sure.
and be sure to get back to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you do have something configured to show here, there's different approaches we could take. The most simple one is just to hard code production, and then if you have production tier, it shows this header here that specifically says these are environments and deployments with production tier, and it shows everything we have here. There's an ordering, so you can order like which order you want to see the projects on, which is important because you may have hundreds of projects within your group, so that helps. But maybe we want to have this is a search block similar to the one in the issues and boards view. So essentially you choose tier and then the production tier here. So in theory, you could also see everything that's going to staging tier to dev tier, other tiers as well. And then the actual question I want to make that ties to your last comment is do we have enough confidence on the usage of production tier to release this mapping to it? Because it might be the case that so little customers are using the production tier right now that this won't get adoption at all, and maybe we should really focus on the URL. That's the question I have. And then on top of that, how to set up the URL. I use the same design pattern here from the boards view. So you could define the URL as whatever you want, maybe with a wildcard, and then perhaps you could also define something else like the tier. But that's a big question for me. I think technically speaking, in terms of the product, using the tiers is the right choice looking forward. But I don't know if it will ease adoption. Or maybe we want to use the tier here exactly to have that as a forcing function, so our customers start using deployment tiers on their environments. That may also be the case, but it's something for us to have in mind when implementing this and rolling this out.
Yeah, great question and great kind of thinking ahead also. I'm still inclined, especially for the MVC, to go with the tier. It's likely easier to build, although we'll want to work with engineering to double check that. and two, it is pretty, it's very, it's a very strong signal of what, how the users are using environments, right? So, if we're using wildcards, then we're not exactly sure of how, production may mean something else, or, if we start wildcarding things.
Right.
And so that would be the concern, that we're not exactly matching on what they intend. But three, I like actually your last point, which is I think production tier is a great concept that we've built. And so this kind of layers on and makes it more useful. And so I think there's like a pull for the user to there's more incentive for them to use it. And so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll see. Yeah, and we'll sort of. I think one, to also answer your question, I think we can try to look up. We should be able to look up what how widely the tier is, and so that's something I could look into as well.
It should be a simple query for sure.
Cool.
Then querying it against the absolute number of environments to see to which extent it's being used.
Yeah.
Then there's some very obviously non-MVC ideas here. Perhaps you wanted to filter a specific list of projects, right? Within everything that you have for easier consumption. And there were some other ideas as well, but yeah, I think this will be a very useful like first pass at the feature, especially for very large organizations that have hundreds of projects. But I think very quickly we'll get feedback asking for things like this, right? Okay, this is great, but it's too much. How do I narrow down to what I need, right? Like, so it comes down to filtering, comes down to search, comes down to favorites, sure, I want to be able to look at everything, but I also want to be able to look at my top 5, top 10 applications or projects or whatever it is. So I'm trying to keep these options on the radar.
Yep, definitely. And maybe even like customizing their own groups or something like that could be another idea. Yeah.
Being able to see arbitrary groups of information depending on what they need.
Yeah. But love the explorations. These these are exciting. It's really easy to see how these can be used, like after MVC.
Especially because this is exactly how our board's view works, with the filters in here and some additional stuff. So it's a common pattern within GitLab as well.
Definitely.
All right. So I will stop sharing the screen. Let's go back to the agenda. So yeah, I'll add the Figma link here, so you can take a look later on if you want to.
By the way, Daniel, I know I could go past. I have another half hour, so we can if you're also free. But
I can go a little bit over. Yeah, I have another meeting later on, but I can go.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
So the last topic within this board level environments is the deep dive with Jackie. So for context, for anyone who's watching, Jackie Porter, who was the previous product manager for the release management team, I think it was the name at the time. A lot of the research, most of the research that led to this issue was when she was on the team. So she offered us to have a deep dive and go over some of the previous topics and previous research that was done to help us understand it and move forward, which was really nice of her. So it's scheduled for next week. We'll definitely record it as well. And Chris, I think it's, as you mentioned, it's worth coming up with an agenda of topics for what we'll discuss. At the very least, what I thought was starting to list out the relevant like reading list, right?
Yeah.
What's the past research and the past strategy and issues and epics they want to bring up, and then try to go over those with her and see and defining as well what are our questions, what do we want to know from all this past research that we don't know yet, that we haven't been able to coordinate, if that's the right word. So here,
go ahead. Yeah.
Question. So what's missing? Right. I can start listing this, but if you don't mind, I would prefer for you to lead this agenda if it's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But
Sounds good.
I'll
I can maybe,
stuff.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I'm just saying I'll send you some stuff, like some links and things that I know are relevant to be discussed, but I'll leave it to you to get the whole thing together.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll create an issue. We can also add topics there, and we could flag them to Jackie so she has a heads up as well. But I'm sure that'll be useful. Cool.
All right, thanks for that.
That's good.
So review direction pages. It's not exactly within this topic, but the category maturity. It's we discussed this recently, but just for context of the recording, we have a category maturity page on our handbook. This one, not in the handbook, but in the marketing pages. And the dates for planned category maturity for release don't really make a lot of sense. You see there's stuff that jumps straight to 2023. So it's not really clear, at least for me at a first look, what is the priority to raise in maturity. And that maps to research efforts that will come up in Q1. So I asked Chris to look this up. And so we know for sure if the focus is release orchestration or environment management or something else, and have us better prepared to research the right things to evolve the maturity. Make sense, Chris?
Makes sense. Yep. And all this is I mean, we were also talking about this the other day, but sort of that that process is fairly new to me. And so it's something I'll want to just read up on and talk to Kevin and maybe read other material in the handbook about how we approach that. Great. Yep. I'll handle that one.
And then the last two, you added them. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. So I did notice we got a ping from Lucas and the link to issue.
Switch the sharing to you so you can open the link.
Yeah, sounds good.
Go for it.
I don't think I can. You might have to stop first. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we got a ping from Lucas on this issue. I believe the context is that we're doing OKR planning, and I think one of the initiatives will be to try to make progress on a lot of the SUS issues, usability score issues next quarter. And so it sounds like this is an exercise of like triaging a lot of across GitLab for every group, all the usability issues that have been surfaced kind of in the past, I guess recently. And so I think the exercise here is to look at these for release, and and also these are in the list because they haven't been assigned a severity. So I think the exercise is to go through these, flag which one, most importantly, flag which ones are severity 1, kind of the most severe, and then just so we're categorizing them correctly, and then we could also make progress towards completing those items. And so I think I haven't really done this exercise before, Daniel, but I think this will be I don't know if you have, but I think maybe we could do this together. We could also do it async as well, but I think it's going through the issues, making sure we understand what the issues are, assigning severity, and then next quarter, when we start the new quarter, we'll try to make a list and prioritize which ones have the most impact for our users.
So I actually got the same ask last week. So it was a similar list of issues, but there was some overlap. So some of these have severity already that I added earlier this week. The tricky thing, and I don't know if the handbook link is not added, so I'm gonna add here the handbook link about issue triage. It's on the agenda. Essentially, severity was the severity labels were created for bugs, right? There's some leeway as to what bugs mean, but essentially, everything that is a bug that has to be fixed rather than an improvement that could be done needs to have a severity to determine the SLO, like how fast it has to be fixed.
Right.
But my understanding is that the severity labels are really useful for exactly tracking how fast things should be done. So they are starting to be added in like almost everything. From the design side, we were asked to add severity for everything that had a list of labels that were related to SUS. Yeah, so it's more or less the same ask here as well. And a lot of these issues are not bugs at all. They're not something that's broken. They are just improvements, like add a functionality, add a new capability. So it was tricky to determine what is the severity of a new issue, of a new feature, right? Because we don't have it yet. So is it depending on the impact, on how many customers are asking for it? So this was discussed in the UX weekly meeting this week. So, and essentially what was said was, you know, rule of thumb, add a severity for a new issue. But that can change. So I opened an MR to add this guidance, and there's some discussion on this. So this page that I added soon will be updated with more specific info on how to label new features with a severity. But as far as I know, so for now, like just add severity for, that's what I did. I added four to most of them. Some of them that seem more important, I put a 3 just because that seemed like the right thing to do. But right now there's not a specific guidance for some of these issues.
Okay, sounds good. This is awesome that you took the initiative to create this MR, because yeah, upon like the first review, I wasn't sure exactly how to assign, just thinking about like what should the criteria be.
Mhm.
So I'm glad to see that we're thinking about that, and hopefully we'll have some more of a perspective as well. But yeah, sounds good. I like the initial approach of like marking sort of new features, the things that aren't really broken yet, right? I don't think those are, in general, I don't think those are severe issues, so we could mark them as such too.
Yeah, I think most of the severity 1s and 2s are already marked, but it's worth taking another look.
Okay. So Daniel, what do you think? Maybe we should async can go through each of these, and then maybe we tag each other what our sense of severity is, or what do you think?
I think like these most of the ones that are more UX focused already have a severity. So
Okay.
what I would say is just go over the list and add whatever severity you think is relevant, given the guidance that we have, and where we don't have a guidance, just go to whatever you think makes sense. And then for these and for others where you're not sure, you feel free to tag me and we'll see together. But it's a quick exercise. Like most of them, at least from my evaluation, it was easy to see like if something was severity 3 or 4. But if you're in doubt about any of them, let me know.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that conversation. Okay, and the last one really quickly is, yeah, just flagging to you, we're in the new milestone now. If there's anything in particular that we want the engineering team to research, feel free to just add it to the needs weight issue, and the engineers will take a look.
Yeah, I think I'll take a look, but I think everything that should be looked at, I already added to the planning issue. This needs weight issue, they essentially pick up the issues from the planning that are assigned to them, and then go over the weight for each one of them, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like it's like in part of the milestone planning. I think it's things that are likely going to be worked on next milestone, or even beyond that, ideally. And so it's sort of like trying to keep the train moving and making sure those things that we want to work on next milestone are ready for development, weighted, and all the
Also,
questions.
so these are for issues in 49.
Yes, sorry, yeah, that's the intent. Yep. So
Yeah.
it's like these are the issues that they'll research in 14.8, but we'll schedule 14.9, 14.10, beyond. Yep.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I'm actually planning to start looking into 49 tomorrow, so that's good timing.
Yeah.
I'll try to match the list of whatever I think should be worked on 49 with what they're waiting and whatever's missing.
Sounds good. And yeah, perfect. Feel free to ping me. I'm happy to kind of manage, do the updates here, but you're also welcome to add it to the list too.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, that's the end of our agenda. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, nothing else to add. Good conversation.
Yeah, thanks for that. All right, thanks
Cool.
for watching and see you next time. Cheers.
Everyone.